Hey there viewers, welcome to part 2. In this video I'm going to focus on showing you what can go wrong when you set your timing. And I'm going to also point out how it happened on my 2.5 liter engine, the one that I had paid a professional mechanic to time for me. And I'm going to be pointing out what he missed and what almost happened to me when I went back to reset the timing after the engine had been put in the car. I'm going to be running through the procedure very quickly because I just want to get to the point and show you what can go wrong, because really I think that that's the most important thing for people to know, because the procedure itself isn't that hard. And I'm releasing this video before I release the other two videos because frankly I think that this one is the most important of all. Given the fact that the procedure isn't that hard, the tools aren't that hard to use, and it's really not that difficult to understand. One thing that I do want to point out is that about halfway through the video, when I actually show you what this problem is and I start to talk about how you can avoid it, you'll see me saying that I think the only way to do it, the only way to avoid the problem, is to put the crankshaft pulley bolt in, turn the crankshaft, bring everything to top dead center, then put your timing cover on and your crank pulley, and then go back and verify top dead center, and then put everything back together. However, you'll see me, right after I show you what the problem is and demonstrate how you need to look at the crankshaft counterweight, you'll see me put the timing cover on and then put the crankshaft pulley on and then go back to the end of the crankshaft and verify top dead center. And the only reason that I ended up doing that is because I had already set the crankshaft to top dead center as I was demonstrating to you what could go wrong. So I guess the point is that even though I say that that's the only way to do it, there's actually obviously more than one way. You can either set TDC before you put the timing cover and the pulley on, or you can put the timing cover and the pulley on and then go to the back of the crankshaft and verify TDC that way. The most important thing is, no matter how you get there, go to the back of the crankshaft, verify TDC by turning it from the back, and then that way you're guaranteed to have everything in the right place so that your timing is dead on. So I just wanted to point that out, so that if you see the video, you're not saying, well, he said that this is the only way and then he went and did it another way. But it just goes to show that this procedure is, this is my interpretation, and you may have a better way, or you just may prefer to do it a different way. But the point is, you need to be looking out for what I'm showing you so that it doesn't happen to you. A lot of you will probably not need to watch my upcoming two videos where I go into a little bit more detail about this, because as you're about to see, the procedure is very straightforward and it's not that difficult at all. So either way, I hope that these series of videos is helpful, and of course, thanks for watching. I've got my timing tools here. I've got some parts and tools on the floor in front of me. I'm going to run through the procedure per the factory service manual and the technical training document that I have. I'm not going to go into extensive detail. I'm just going to go through it quickly to make my point. In the next video, I'll go into tremendous detail and I'll walk you through step by step, explaining everything and showing where everything goes and what it should look like, and there'll be everything you could ever want in that video, and of course it'll be considerably longer than this one. But anyway, let's get started. The first thing to do is to take your camshaft timing plate and put it in the slots in the end of the camshafts. The next thing to do is to take your plug out of the side of the block. Now we want to put our timing cover on. And I'm just going to hold it in place with one bolt for now. So remember, I'm not covering everything here. just enough so that you guys get the point. Let me find a better place for this bolt. There's a alignment pin on the right side of this cover that's been giving me some trouble. So we'll do that. Okay. The next thing that we want to do is take our crankshaft pulley bolt and put it in the end of the crankshaft. The reason we need to do that is because in order to get our timing peg in place, we have to have the crankshaft counterweight in the right position so that it's not blocking the peg from going in. So I'll take my bolt and I'm going to loosely run it down with the impact, but you can see that the washer is still loose, and I'm pointing that out for a reason which you'll appreciate later. So now I'm just going to tighten it by hand. Now using my ratchet, I'm going to rotate the crankshaft around until the number 1 piston is just past bottom dead center and on its way back up to top dead center. I'm using a rod that I have in the number 1 cylinder to keep track of where the piston is. Alright, so now it's on its way back up and I can get my peg in. And now what I want to do is continue to rotate the crankshaft until the counterweight is up against the peg. And I'll know that it's there because the crankshaft will stop turning, and also you can hear it. That's it. Final step, and there are 3 steps in timing these engines, is to time the crankshaft pulley. First I have to get this bolt out. Take this bolt all the way out. And now we're going to take our pulley, put it onto the end of the crankshaft, and there's a hole that goes through the pulley and another hole in the timing cover where they meet up. And that is how you properly time the pulley. So I've got those lined up. I'm going to take my M6 bolt, put it in there. And what that does is that it ensures that the 9th tooth on the timing wheel is centered with the crankshaft position sensor. So now I'll take my crankshaft pulley bolt, put it in, and run it down. So that's it. In just a couple of minutes, I've timed the camshafts, the crankshaft, and the crankshaft pulley. Now what we have to do is verify that it's right. So to do that, we take all our timing items out, and then we take the plate out of the back of the camshafts. Now what we're going to do is rotate the engine manually to make sure that all our clearances are good. And there you go. No problems, no contact piston to valve, nothing. So now we'll go ahead and bring it to where it needs to be in order to get the timing items back in. So I think that the best way to verify, and there is more than one way, is to use the timing peg and go to top dead center with the crankshaft. So we'll put our tool in, our timing peg in. We will bring the crankshaft around until it comes to top dead center up against the peg. And you could hear it, and you see that I can't turn the crankshaft anymore. Now what I'm going to do is take my camshaft timing plate and see if I can slide it in place in the end of the camshafts. And I cannot. And I know you can't see it, but you will in the next video. You'll be able to see everything. But I can tell you right now that this plate isn't anywhere near going in. The final thing to verify is to take your bolt and see if you can get it into the timing cover through the pulley. And I can tell you by looking at it, it is nowhere near going to go in. Also, the ninth tooth of the timing wheel is all the way up here when it needs to be somewhere down here. So 2 out of 3 of our components are not properly timed, even after we went through the procedure. So now what I'd like to do is show you how that happened. And this is really the point of the whole thing. I'm going to show you what I believe to be the #1 problem that you can run into when you're doing this timing on the 2.0, 2.3, and 2.5 engines that can get you into a lot of trouble if you're not experienced enough to catch it. Now remember, I believe I mentioned in the intro to this video that the first time that I saw this demonstrated was by a professional mechanic. So I feel like if he could miss it, then I could have certainly missed it, and maybe you can miss it too. So that's why I think that this video is, going to help a lot of people out. So what I have to do now is some disassembly. I first, however, want to restore the relationship of the crankshaft to where it was before we considered everything done. And the way that I'm going to do that is by putting my camshaft plate back in place. And by doing so, I will restore the crankshaft back to the way that it was earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and use the camshafts. Okay, so the camshafts are back to the way that they were. Now I'm going to take this cover off, and we're going to look inside, and I'm going to show you what went on. And again, I realize a lot of you probably already know, but remember, this video is predominantly for DIYers and for people who may not have done this before or just don't have a lot of experience. So we'll take our cover off. And now I'm going to have to take the camera off of the tripod to show you this. But I want you to focus your attention in this area right here. All right, so here we go. All right. So we are looking right through here, and here you can see the timing peg, and you can see that it goes through the block and it comes out over here. Now, right through here, right in this area behind this support, should be our crankshaft counterweight with the flat spot on it, but it is nowhere to be seen. Well, actually you can see it hiding maybe a little bit back there. Now here's the bottom. This is the bottom of the crankshaft counterweight, and if you look hard you can even see, I think, the connecting rod maybe back there. Well, maybe not. Anyway, we should have the crankshaft counterweight up against the peg. Remember, the plate is in the camshafts, and this needs to be, in order for the #1 piston to be at top dead center, the crankshaft counterweight, and therefore the piston, must be up against the timing peg here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the bolt back in the end of the crankshaft, and I'm going to show you just how far off this timing actually is. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the crankshaft with my ratchet. This is a long one. And I want you to watch right here, or watch right here, and you're going to see this crankshaft counterweight with the flat side on it. I've got a red dot painted on it for you. You're going to see it come into the picture. So there it is. All right. Now if you watch, if I move it a little bit further, now it is at absolute top dead center. So I'll do it again just so you can see it. Now you're at top dead center. And you could see, can you imagine how much timing that represents for this thing to be all the way down here? So how did that happen? How did that crankshaft get so far away from the timing peg after we had initially set it? Well, believe it or not, it's all because of me taking this bolt out of the end of the crankshaft. Even though I was very careful rotating the engine, I've got all the spark plugs out of this engine right now, so it has absolutely minimal resistance to the crankshaft turning. But simply by me rotating the engine 360 degrees or so to get the counterweight and the piston in the proper position to put the timing peg in, just by me taking this bolt out, it moved that relationship enough to make the timing be significantly out. And I can tell you what you saw there wasn't very much different from what I believe happened to my 2.5. So that's the point of this whole thing, guys. If you are going to use the bolt to rotate your crankshaft in order to get your timing peg in and get everything set up, then you have to be extremely careful when you take it out. Now, I personally, having done this quite a few times, I think it's almost impossible to get this bolt out after rotating the crankshaft with the ratchet without moving the crankshaft. I believe that what you should do is use the bolt, rotate the crankshaft, get everything into position, take your bolt out, then go back to the end of the crankshaft and restore the relationship that way, bringing the counterweight up against the peg and restoring absolute top dead center before you go ahead and put your crankshaft pulley on and tighten down the bolt. I think that that is the only way to do it. Now, you seasoned guys, the professionals probably know that, but us DIYer rookies probably would overlook that, because it's very hard to imagine that simply removing this bolt could have moved the timing, moved that crankshaft so far. So let's go ahead and put everything back together and double check. So I'll take this bolt out. Well, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to restore the relationship. So we'll bring that back up to top dead center. And there it is. It's all the way up. Now I'm going to try to get this bolt out. And you can see even that little bit caused it to move. So what I'm going to do is take the bolt out all the way. And I'm going to put the camera back on the tripod. And I'll show you how I'm going to do it to avoid any problems. Alright. So let's go ahead and put everything back together, and then I'll show you how to avoid this. So basically we'll be repeating the procedure. I've got my timing plate in the camshafts. I've got my peg here in the side of the block. Now I'm going to put my timing cover on. Now what I'm going to do is put the pulley on. I will time it by putting the bolt through. And now I'm going to take my pulley bolt, put it in loosely. Before I tighten anything down, I'm going to go back to the end of the crankshaft and using a pry bar, I'm going to turn the crankshaft in the appropriate direction to make sure that the crankshaft counterweight is up against the timing peg. So here I go. I don't think you'll be able to hear it because it's already pretty close, but yeah. So I will actually move it for your benefit so you can hear it. Bear with me a second. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and rotate the crankshaft with my pry bar so that I can hear and feel the counterweight come in contact with the peg. So here I go. All right, now I am absolutely sure that I'm up against the timing peg and at top dead center. Even though I used my bolt earlier and took it out, and even though I put my crankshaft pulley on, which, by the way, can also move the crankshaft, believe it or not, I know that I'm at absolute top dead center. Now I can tighten my bolt. And now I believe we are 100% verified, timed properly. Let's double check. So we take all our tools out. Our bolt, our peg, and our plate. Put that stuff up there. And we're going to rotate the engine around. Check our clearances. And you can see and hear that everything is fine. Now I should be in the right position to put my timing peg back in. And I think I went a little bit too far, so bear with me. Let's see if I can just back it up, just save some time here. There we go. Trying to keep this short. All right, so the peg is in. So now we will rotate the crankshaft until we hear and feel the crankshaft stop, and it has. So now I'm going to take my camshaft timing plate and see if it slides in place. And it does. Perfect. Final verification is to take our bolt and see if it goes into the end of the crankshaft pulley. And it goes perfectly. And also the final step is to visually verify that the 9th tooth is in the center of the crankshaft position sensor, which it has to be if the bolt goes in. So that's it. So what you've just seen is what I believe to be the #1 reason why your timing can be out even though you've run through the procedure and followed it step by step. I think I've shown you that if you use this bolt to rotate the crankshaft and to position everything to get to top dead center, that simply by taking it out, no matter how careful you are, the bolt is cinched down just enough against the end of the crankshaft to cause the crankshaft to move when you break it loose. And I've done this probably 25 times, and I can tell you that 99% of the time, taking that bolt out moves the timing enough to the point where you would have problems if you were to start this engine. Now, I don't think you'd have clearance issues with valve to piston, but you would have problems with the timing being off, to the point where I believe that the #1 complaint would be lack of power or running funny. I had so many problems with mine that it was hard to even describe what was going on. So that's it, guys. If you're going to do that, like I said, if you use the crank pulley bolt, you absolutely must go to the back of your crankshaft before you tighten anything down and restore the relationship of the crankshaft weight to the timing peg and making sure that you're at absolute top dead center. And I feel like if you do that, you can say with 100% confidence that you are properly timed, and when you start your engine up for the first time, it's going to run great. So that's it for this video. I think I made my point and showed you what I thought was probably the most important thing for you to pay attention to during the process. And in the next video, I'll go into extensive detail about everything from beginning to end, and that way there'll be no mysteries about anything, and you'll probably benefit greatly from that as well, or at least I hope you will. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you have any comments, feel free to post them. And as always, thanks for watching.